Ladies, gentlemen, and genetic anomalies, what's happening? It's Newbie back again with yet another stream. And today we're going to be reacting to just a couple things because we don't have time to get into a whole lot. We'll be talking about the second assassination attempt on the life of Donald Trump. And then after that, we will be talking about what really killed him. Is that debate that happened last week with ABC News. So that should be fun. I thought that was Trump's worst debate ever. But we'll go over it. We'll go over it on the stream. Oh, I forgot to put on the URL for my Discord server. If you guys are not tuned in or plugged into the Discord server, please go check it out. It's a good time. We're pretty chill. And also, you guys will get updates on when I'm streaming next, and you'll be able to submit things to request that I react to. So there is that as well. Hold on. Sorry. I'm just looking for something here, because I'm realizing that my computer actually is probably not going to have enough time to enough space to record the entire stream unless I delete something extra. So there we go. I just deleted something extra. So that should do it. All right, there we go. But yeah, there are more things I wanted to talk about, but I just don't have the time to talk about them on the stream. So those subjects will have to rest for another day. They'll have to wait for their time to shine. But I hope you guys are all doing well. This is going to be a fun, exciting stream. Maybe not the most fun to do as somebody who's voting for Trump, because not the greatest optics week for Trump, honestly. But I mean, hey, it could be worse. And to be fair, also, like, some of it is like due to media lies. So that, of course, is not going to help things at all. Yeah, I'll go ahead and cut off the music, and we can go ahead and get started reacting to some of this stuff. So actually, I should pull up an article here. Let me see if Fox News has something about this, as I'm quite sure that they do. All right. So, and I don't like talking about
what is being investigated as a
So, y'all know I don't like to talk about shootings when they happen in the news, really. I've made multiple videos about shootings in the past. However, this one is pretty big because this is actually the second attempt on Donald Trump's life here that we have. Someone tried to take pot shots at Donald Trump while he was out golfing. Now, it was pretty funny because the mainstream media saying, oh, we're going to keep these sorts of things from happening in the future by toning down our rhetoric. And then they went on to call Trump a racist and a Nazi and all the things that they usually call him. And then we see another one of these, not blaming the assassination attempt on the mainstream media. I think at this point it's more of a cultural force than the fault of the mainstream media that Trump keeps on getting shot at. But let's take a dig into this article here. This is from Fox News. It says, Trump safe after gunshots in his vicinity, campaign says. Investigation treating suspect as a potential assassin after Secret Service fired at man carrying AK-47 outside Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach. It says here, former President Donald Trump was safe after the Secret Service fired at a gun-toting man outside Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach, Florida, Sunday, sources told Fox News. Authorities are treating the cases as a potential assassination attempt and arrested a man sources identified as Ryan Wesley Routh. Man, all the assassins have middle names. What's up with that? Routh was allegedly armed with a rifle when agents fired at him. This does not appear to be some random guy with an AK-47 walking outside Trump's club, the official added. The funny thing is, when this was initially reported, I actually saw reporting that said shots fired while Trump was golfing, he was not the intended target. And then like moments later, literally everyone is saying, oh, this is an assassination attempt. So that I did think that was interesting. Authorities said Routh, who had a GoPro camera and 2 backpacks, shoved the muzzle of his rifle through a chain link fence and may have been aiming at the president when agents fired at him. I mean, he could have a grudge against one individual Secret Service officer or club member, but that'd be surprising to me. Fox News' Lucas Tomlinson confirmed that the Secret Service opened fire after they saw the suspect raising the weapon. The suspect fled in a black Nissan, but was quickly apprehended, authorities said. Trump was on the 5th hole of his course when the shots rang out, prompting his protective detail to swarm him and usher him to the safety of the clubhouse. The incident may prove to be the second attempt on the former president's life in just 2 months. Okay, so this article here is not making it seem like we know for sure that this is an assassination attempt, although I think a lot of the current reporting seems to be indicating that it's confirmed that this is an assassination attempt. But again, we've got other stuff that we'll take a look at later on in our coverage of this. Fox News Channel's Sean Hannity, citing local law enforcement, said the suspect's rifle was discovered in the bushes. 4 shots were fired. Hannity also confirmed through local law enforcement. Hannity said Trump's initial reaction inside the clubhouse was to make sure everyone was okay. Fox News host Bret Baier also spoke to Trump, who praised the Secret Service for acting quickly. Trump reaffirmed Baier that he was fine and there was no evidence any shots were near him or hitting near him. That writing is atrocious. I'm sorry. Tell everyone I am fine and the Secret Service did a great job, Trump told Baier. Oh, that's nice. Wait, did he call in? Yo, bro, that's a literal Chad move. If Trump is literally getting shot at and then he calls into Fox News, like he calls into the news and is like, hey, by the way, yeah, they shot at me, but I'm fine. Like, that would be insane. I mean, I don't watch Fox News, so I don't know if that's what happened, but that'd be pretty dope if that was the case. The Secret Service is working closely with authorities in investigating the situation, and U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland has been briefed. We've got a Z here. It says the Secret Service, in conjunction with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, is investigating a protective incident involving former President Donald Trump that occurred shortly before 2 p.m. The former president is safe. The Palm Beach County, what does PBSO stand for? Let me look that up and see. Huh? What? They just linked to like this random empty X account who's following no people and joined X like in 2013. Okay, interesting decision there. But the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office will have more details soon. The Secret Service, in conjunction with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot more. There are a whole lot more details down here. So my general thoughts on this as an initial reaction is that, of course, all of these things are horrible. But I think this begs the question of how long until Donald Trump is killed, right? That is the question. Because, I was initially thinking that Trump would win the election and then he would die of let's say a heart attack or something. So something simple like that, He wouldn't necessarily live to become president of the United States. He most certainly wouldn't live to carry out all of his duties and complete the term. But now, that is a conspiracy theory, I will admit, that takes some sort of inside knowledge and planning. If you get my drift on what I'm referring to there. But here, this is actually not something nearly as, well, I guess to use the word insidious sort of downplays the seriousness of this. But this is not something that's as covert. This is something that's very overt. We now have people with guns running around trying to kill Donald Trump. And the question is now, it's not like, how do we stop these shootings from happening? It's, when is the next one going to happen? And will Trump die in it? I think, unfortunately, unless Trump really, really ups his security, he's probably going to have to ditch Secret Service and have a private personal detail, in my opinion, just because they have not done a great job of preventing these things from happening. I will say, based on this article, it does sound like Secret Service shot at the shooter before the shooter could get a shot off at Trump. So, definitely more positive marks in that department in comparison to the attempted shooting that happened before that actually did end up getting Trump shot in the head. But still, it's like, man, like someone like this, you would hope that like the police would have surrounded him and be like snatching him up from behind, and that would be that. But no, that's not what happened. The guy actually was able to bring the gun in and actually aim. He just didn't have the opportunity to fire. So yeah, it does raise the question of, how long is Trump going to be able to avoid dying in this way? And the answer that I have is, I don't know. Because part of me feels like Trump isn't going to up his security team or detail in a way that would prevent something like this from happening again. I think that he's the type of dude who, frankly, is just a little bit too prideful to be like, you know what? Maybe I should be a little bit more careful in public. At this point, something like this will probably give him even more boldness. He's just going to be like, oh, well, people are going to shoot at me, as much as they want to, and they'll never kill me. They tried twice and failed. What president has been shot at twice with failed assassination attempts? So he's probably gloating right now, being like, ha ha ha, they can't kill me. Which is not a great mentality to have, because it's like, man, if you let people shoot at you enough times, you actually are going to die. So I think Trump needs to be more careful. And I think this is not something that the right or the center needs to reckon with, because we generally already know this. But I think the left has to reckon with, is Trump truly a Nazi? And if Trump is truly a Nazi, is shooting and killing a Nazi or assassinating a Nazi justified? We have a lot of people out here apparently trying to be the next Bonhoeffer, but we have to figure out whether or not Trump is actually Hitler first. So I would love to see that discussion on the left for, an outpouring of condemnation of this attack on the left wing. And I'm not talking about just like the mainstream media news, but also like the opinion people. Like we're talking from Joy Reid and Caitlin Collins to, Destiny and Hassan Piker and Vosh. Like I'd like to see the left as a whole kind of rally around and say these sorts of things are unacceptable. Because the people on the left generally like observe media from those sorts of talking heads. And I feel like the rhetoric against being violent against folks on the right and the far right has not nearly been as strong as it needs to be. I think on the right, we sort of get this because when was the last time people on the right tried to assassinate Joe Biden? Or Kamala Harris? Or Barack Obama? See, no, fam. You don't see us doing this. Only the left. So, guys on the left, like Democrats, bro, get it together. Come on, fam. This is not how we behave. This is not how the nation of the United States of America is supposed to conduct herself. But all that said, there's more stuff that we can get to. There's more stuff to react to. Because we also have here... The FBI did a press conference with local police about the shooting. Let's react to this now. I have not seen this one yet.
Little rules of the road.
Oh my goodness. The audio is so quiet and I only hear it in my left ear. What is up with this, bro? Why?
Little rules of the road like we always talk about ahead of time. We are going to give you, when I say we have a representative from the FBI, from the Secret Service, from the State Attorney's Office. We are going to give you everything we have. Everything. All right? So when we get done, think about your questions, because we're not going to take a lot.
Let me rewind, because I don't know if he's the guy from the FBI, but like the FBI did not give us everything when it came to Thomas Matthew Crooks, or Matthew Thomas Crooks, I forget his name.
And keep little rules of the road like we always talk about ahead of time. We are going to give you, when I say we have a representative from the FBI, from the Secret Service.
This Palm Beach local
from the State
police.
Attorney's Office. We are going to give you everything we have. Everything. All right? So when we get done, think about your questions, because we're not going to take a lot. And keep them to the information that you heard. Don't get into what ifs, and because of this, we're not going to go there. All right? So keep that in mind. and we'll be good. So here we go. All right, 1:30 this afternoon. Call came out, shots fired. That was called in by the Secret Service. Because we're in constant contact with them all the time, we were notified of that, and we had units here that immediately sealed off the area. Fortunately, we were able to locate a witness that came to us and said, hey, I saw the guy running out of the bushes. He jumped into a black Nissan, and I took a picture of the vehicle and the tag.
Oh, that's interesting.
Great. So we had that information. Our real-time crime center put it out to the license plate readers. And we were able to get a hit on that vehicle on I-95 as it was headed into Martin County. We got a hold of Martin County Sheriff's Office, alerted them, and they spotted the vehicle and pulled it over and detained the guy. After that, we took the victim, the witness that witnessed the incident, flew him up there, and he identified as the person that he saw running out of the bushes and jumped into the car. Now, in the bushes where this guy was is an AK-47 style rifle with a scope, 2 backpacks which were hung on the fence that had ceramic tile in them, and a GoPro, which he was going to take pictures of. So those are being...
Bro, this dude was hiding in the bushes. You know what that reminds me of? You know what this reminds me of? Bro, it reminds me of this song right here, bro. I don't know if you guys ever heard this before. Is this what the shooter was like?
Stay tuned with the hit news.
Hold on, where's it? Where's this?
It's a burger from East LA. Right now we're going.
Bro, literally hiding in the bushes.
Hey, get back here!
That's literally what the shooter was like. Sorry.
Secret Service agent that was on the course did a fantastic job. What they do is they have an agent that jumps one hole ahead of time to where the president was at. And he was able to spot this rifle barrel sticking out of the fence and immediately engage that individual.
Good.
At which time the individual took off.
Good. So
that's
yeah.
what we know about the investigation. We have somebody in custody right now that is a potential suspect. We got a little bit more work to do on it, but as we usually do, as soon as we decide that we're going to book him into the county jail and the charges that he's going to be booked into, we'll get those to you and we'll get a picture of him and we'll get you his background.
So I will say in the previous segment, I did criticize the Secret Service for allowing the dude to, or at least not stopping the dude from getting over there with the rifle. But at the same time, if I'm going to be honest, I'm glad that at least they stopped him and shot at him before he was able to fire off a shot. That's a lot better than what they did last time. So I do feel like it's only fair for me to point out that while this, this came a lot closer to a successful attempt on Trump's life than what any of us would wish, at least they did stop him from actually getting shot.
So now I'm going to turn it over to the representative of the Secret Service, and he's going to make a brief statement.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I first want to thank all of our law enforcement partners, to include the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office and the Martin County Sheriff's Office, for their involvement today. Former President Donald Trump is safe and unharmed following a protective incident shortly before 2 p.m. on Sunday at Trump International Golf Club at West Palm Beach. The U.S. Secret Service personnel opened fire on a gunman located near the property line, and this matter is under investigation. I'll turn it over to my partners over at the FBI.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Veltri. I'm the special agent in charge of the FBI's Miami field office. The FBI has assumed the role as the lead federal law enforcement agency in the investigation of the incident that occurred earlier today at Trump International Golf Course here in West Palm Beach, Florida. We've deployed a number of resources, including investigative teams, crisis response team members, bomb technicians, and evidence response team members as well.
Why bomb technicians?
What we need right now is for the public to avoid the area around the golf course. We will continue to support this investigation with the full resources of the FBI, alongside our partners with the United States Secret Service and the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office, as well as Martin County Sheriff's Office and state and local law enforcement. I would ask that if anyone has any information that may assist with this investigation, to contact our tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI or at tips, that's TIPS, .FBI.gov. Thank you.
David?
Hi, I'm Dave Ehrenberg, State Attorney for Palm Beach County. I want to thank Judge Bradshaw and our partners at the local, state, and federal levels. I'm here because our prosecutors are currently working up warrants and a motion for pretrial detention for the suspects. In that way, he will be kept in custody. But our filing of these warrants and charges at the state level does not preclude federal charges that could be coming. But in the meantime, it looks like the warrants and the pretrial detention motion will happen first. And again, I want to thank the cooperation we've had with our federal partners and at the local level. And thank you all for being here today.
Okay, we're going to make these pictures available to you. It'll show you a picture of the backpack and the rifle. And there's also a GoPro on the fence there where he was intent on filming what was going on. Even though we're going to have to secure a couple of areas around the golf course here, the public doesn't need to panic. We know that we got a post office, a library, and a school down the street. So we'll make it convenient for you to get to all the places you need to go, get the kids to school, get them over here to the post office or wherever else you need to go. It's safe, there's no more danger here, and we'll make it very convenient for you. So having said that, we're going to take a very limited amount of questions. And
Okay, this should be the most interesting part.
Sheriff, did this individual make any statement that he was being detained?
No statement right now as far as his involvement in the incident, and there's further investigation to be completed.
What was his demeanor?
I'm not sure if the first gentleman answered. I misunderstood, but there was a rifle. So one of your agents saw on the golf course saw a rifle pointing to a fence with a chain. Okay, so he saw that. The agent.
That is correct, yes.
And the president or the former president was on the course behind him. How close?
It was 1 or 2 holes behind. That because the bubble moves through the golf course, so our agents will get there first, clear it. He noticed that the rifle was pointing out. Our agents engaged. We are not sure right now if the individual was able to take a shot at our agents. But
Interesting. Okay, so it is good to know that the agents went near where the shooter was, and they were supposed to clear that before they let Trump there. That's great because, like, that's a line of defense ahead of the former president. I can't get mad at that. It seems like Secret Service handled themselves pretty well here.
through the golf course, so our agents will get there first, clear it. He noticed that the rifle was pointing out. Our agents engaged. We are not sure right now if the individual was able to take a shot at our agents, but for sure our agents were able to engage with the suspect. I don't know that.
Doesn't appear so. Now,
How far away was the president? How far away was Donald Trump when this gentleman was alive?
probably between 300 and 500 yards, but with a rifle and a scope like that, that's not a long distance.
How far was your agent from the would-be assailant?
That I'm not sure right now. We're still looking into.
In terms of the 4 rounds of ammunition were fired, were all 4 of them your agent?
That is correct. 4 to 6. We're not sure yet.
Was there a long distance?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, me either.
Say that one more time and talk up a little bit.
So, how was this able to happen, and for future reference, is there any other security of the golf course?
Well, you got to understand the
good
golf
questions.
course is surrounded by shrubbery. So when somebody gets into the shrubbery, they're pretty much out of sight. All right? And at this level that he is at right now, he's not the city president. If he was, we would have had this entire golf course around him. But because he's not, the security is limited to the areas that the Secret Service deems possible.
Well, in the future, and I sort of make that kind of makes some sense, but in the wake of all this has to be they got to revise this. They can't abide by this because, especially now that this is public knowledge that whenever Trump is golfing, only one of the holes is going to be guarded. Essentially, you can't have that information be out there where it could be potentially abused by, someone with nefarious intent.
So I would imagine that the next time he comes to the golf course, there'll probably be a little bit more people around the perimeter. But the Secret Service did exactly what they should have done. They provided exactly what the protection should have been, and their agent did a fantastic job.
Which direction was the shrubbery? Was north, south? South of the road?
The layout of the golf course, you've got 3 holes, 5, 6, and 7. All right? One of them runs parallel to Summit Boulevard. One of them runs parallel to Congress. And he was in an area in the shrubbery where he could see both holes. So the president was another hole back, which means he's about between 400 and 500 yards away. Oh, he's on the golf course, yeah, but he's back a ways.
So the Secret Service, have you guys changed at all the way that you guys are former President Donald Trump is now potential second attempt on him? Can you just elaborate on how things have changed and what you made of all this?
Yes, the threat level is high. We have increased the amount of assets that we've supported. So we are
Good.
We live in danger times. So yes.
Nope, we're done with questions right now. There's really nothing more for us to add. Just want to tell you,
Oh, wow.
the Secret Service and the FBI
That was brief.
and the State Attorney's Office have been fantastic to work with. And I can tell you right now, our agency with this real-time crime center was fabulous. That's how we got the guy. We started out with, we don't know anything, to where we had a tag, we had a vehicle description, and we got an area where we saw the person. So be proud of your law enforcement. All right, thanks folks, we'll get back to you.
I mean, I think that was only marginally informative, not a whole lot of information. I will say, interesting to hear him say that there was, he's not sure whether or not the suspect fired shots at Trump. I think it makes sense, though, considering the fact that, if you've got 2 people who are shooting, or if you got like a bunch of people shooting in one direction, because of the noise, it'd be hard to tell whether or not, who's doing which shots. In the comments here, why are we... Someone, I don't know if this is even doxing. I'll move away from this, but it's like, I should probably move away from this comment section. This probably might not be the best comment section for me to peruse. But yeah, it's encouraging to hear the Palm Beach sheriff praise the FBI and their work with this. We'll see how transparency goes moving forward, though, because with the last shooting, they weren't the most transparent. I would like to see more transparency here. There's a chance that they might be more transparent. You never know. But I am very interested to see how this investigation turns out. So hopefully stuff like this stops happening in the future. At this rate, I doubt that it's going to stop happening. They're probably going to have another attempt on Trump's life. We just got to hope that the third time is not the charm for these, Democrats who don't know how to use guns properly and are pretty bad at shooting targets, apparently. So, but look, in the wake of the second assassination attempt on, sorry, I bungled that intro. That was terrible. So in the wake of the second assassination attempt on President Trump's life, I did want to sort of see what CNN's analysis is. Because, I mean, CNN does not necessarily like Trump all that much. So it'd be interesting to see how they took this, especially because it's very likely that the shooter was one of their own, in my opinion. Someone on the left who hates Trump. I mean, it could be someone who's on the far right who just really, really, really wanted to see J.D. Vance be the president of the United States, but I somehow doubt that. But yeah. I hit the wrong button. Okay, yeah. Here is the video of, oh boy, Caitlin Collins. Yay, Will. Caitlin Collins is quickly becoming one of my least favorite CNN personalities. I'll just say that. But here we have Caitlin Collins speaking with Wolf Blitzer, and I think later on it does become a proper Discord call right here. Yeah. So here we go.
Welcome to our viewers in the United States and around the world. We are continuing our breaking news live coverage after the FBI says it is investigating what appears to be an attempted assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump. We are told the former president is safe after shots were fired in his vicinity while he was golfing at his club in West Palm Beach, Florida. That's just about a 15-minute drive from where his Mar-a-Lago club is in Palm Beach, Florida. Moments ago, we got an account from the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office detailing how all of this unfolded, Wolf, and it is quite stunning.
It's stunning and very detailed. In fact, very, very revealing. Law enforcement officials saying a person has been detained in connection with this incident that occurred at the Trump International Golf Club around 1:30 p.m. Eastern earlier this afternoon. U.S. Secret Service agents fired gunshots at the suspect, who they believe was armed and intended to target former President Trump. An AK-style long-arm rifle with a scope, 2 backpacks, and a GoPro camera were recovered. Let's go to our panel right now and get Charles Ramsey's assessment of what's going on. The fact that there was a scope, Chief Ramsey, it says to me, it explains, I think in part, why the FBI has concluded this appears to have been a second assassination attempt against Trump.
Well,
yeah, I think you're right. I mean, clearly, in my mind anyway, that's the appropriate classification for this particular incident. We're just fortunate. We're very lucky. We were lucky in July in Butler, Pennsylvania, and again today. But luck only goes so far. And so everyone has to be incredibly vigilant, enhance security, not just for the former president, but for all of the candidates, because we're just...
Yeah, because, you know, like, there have been so many people taking shots at Kamala Harris and RFK Jr. I will also make this one slide aside. I don't know why they're using WebEx instead of, like, something like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, but that's just me.
In an environment right now where you have a lot of unstable people who apparently are not afraid to try to actually harm someone. So we're very fortunate that the Secret Service agent was able to spot this and able to take immediate action and prevent a tragedy from occurring.
And that Secret Service agent spotted the barrel of a rifle sticking out from those trees near that golf course right there, and that's when shots were fired at the suspect, and eventually another individual saw what was going on and took some pictures of the vehicle that the suspect was using, the license plate, and eventually the suspect was captured in Martin County, just north of Palm Beach County, not very far away. Jonathan Wackrow, the fact that there was a GoPro camera that was right near that fence, near those backpacks that this suspect had over there, what does that say to you?
Yeah, that was interesting.
Well, listen, Wolf, I think that a lot of these elements speak to an elevated level of sophistication by this shooter, right? So the GoPro camera was the intent here to live stream this attack. By the fact that we saw those, we heard reporting that, and I believe we heard it during the press conference as well, that the backpacks contained ceramic plates. Again, this was really setting up a firing position. The shooter probably intended to engage directly with Secret Service agents at one point. I think the Secret Service structure, though, the protective methodology, by putting out agents in advance of the protectee during their Gulf operations to really flush out this type of threat along the edges of the fairways. Really proved successful. This is a
and they again. So the Secret Service does they do merit some praise for this, for using such methods that would be able to catch the shooter. And putting their lives on the line, putting their bodies in between the potential threat and President Trump. You know, Secret Service got a lot of hate for how they handled the first assassination attempt, and all of that was well deserved. But also, I think they deserve equal praise for putting a stop to this before Trump got closer to the person who was trying to take him out.
The model that the Secret Service has applied to these types of activities for a long time. I mean, dating back to, I believe, the Bush and Clinton administrations, where putting agents anywhere from 75 to 150 yards in advance. Again, trying to expand out that protective bubble around the protectee, just for this very reason. But it's difficult. I mean, they're out there, flanking the protectee for a long time. This person obviously set up their location. They had a level of cover and concealment to launch this attack. They most likely had a line of sight from that fence line back into the fairway. That's disturbing. I think that was hinted at during the in both the article that I read as well as the joint press conference that was done. More troubling is the accessibility, the ease of ingress and egress by this attacker. They had that escape route. The critical factor that we heard during the press conference is the witness. They saw the suspect running away, getting into the vehicle. And I think Andy McCabe said, very smartly, the person took out their phone, took a picture of the car, and then got the license plate. Smart. The communication with federal, state, and local law enforcement entities through the real-time crime center got that information out almost instantaneously, and utilizing license plate readers, they were able to track the direction of the vehicle, make the vehicle stop, and get the suspect in custody without incident. So this is a real big success for law enforcement, and it all centers around the coordination, the rapid coordination of information and dissemination to all stakeholders. We heard that during the press conference. It was great to see everybody reassuring the public that there's no additional danger, and that all stakeholders within the law enforcement and prosecutorial community were represented there.
Yeah, I think by the time, oh my goodness, I did not mean to double click, but yeah, I think by the time that this got reported, they were already like, oh yeah, Trump's fine, he's safe, and the attempted assailant is in hand. So that was pretty cool as well, because with the first assassination attempt, Trump got shot at, and we saw it all happen live, but we didn't know, who the attacker was, how many shooters there were, whether or not the shooter got captured or not. But in this case here, we got that info almost instantaneously, and I think that was probably good.
Stakeholders within the law enforcement and prosecutorial community were represented there.
And you can see how close this golf club is to Interstate 95, a major highway going all through the state of Florida, all the way up the East Coast as well. Caitlin, go ahead.
While we're looking at this, I just want to keep this image up, because you're seeing Trump International Golf Course right here. We're highlighting hole 5 and hole 6 because that's where we believe Trump was getting close to when the agents were walking ahead of him. And what's remarkable about this is they were talking about the 3 roads that are the access points. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office is right there to your top right, a little bit above.
Wait, I'm so confused because the map is different in these 2 pictures. You guys see this thumbnail, right? What? So this is hole 5 and 6, but did hole 5 and 6 move? I've never. What? I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. Teleporting holes? That's odd. I want to know which of these is correct. I've never seen anything like this before.
walking ahead of
on
him
live television.
And what's remarkable about this is they were talking about the 3 roads that are the access points. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office is right there to your top right, a little bit above where hole 5 is. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office in the jail actually backs up to Donald Trump's golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida. And just to give you a sense of what we were looking at on the ground and how quickly officials were able to move here, and they put out that be on the lookout alert for the person that the witness luckily was able to see a person leaving the bushes, emerging and getting into a black car and then driving, which they apprehended on I-95 just north of Palm Beach County,
it wasn't
and
far
what
at
we're
all.
looking at here on this image. And so, John Miller, when you look at this and what we've heard from officials, they would not say outright that they have a suspect in custody, but the sheriff said, John Miller, that they have a potential suspect in custody. And so when that is the case and they have someone that they are obviously questioning, what we were told earlier is that this person has not made any statements yet, but they did describe a calm demeanor.
Because I actually was having the question. Sorry, it's getting a little bit cold in the room, so I'm putting on socks. But you know, I have the question where it's like, we've had several hours at this point. This guy has been in police custody for several hours. We know his name as well. Someone in the comment section of the YouTube video that I reacted to earlier even listed that his home address, and also that he has no political affiliation. So, would we not know the motive by now? Someone who is trying to take out President Trump, you would think would actually be very proud of that and would be very open and willing to go to the FBI and says, hey, yeah, Trump is Hitler and I want it to be Bonhoeffer. But we have not seen any rhetoric to that effect or any sort of reporting whatsoever that's insinuating that that we know the motive of the attempted assassin. Now, it is possible that the FBI is withholding information from us. It's a possibility, but it's also possible that they're being accurate here in that the guy who tried to shoot Trump isn't being forthcoming with his motives for trying to take out the former president.
Earlier when we were hearing from the Martin County Sheriff about actually apprehending this person and turning them over to the FBI. What does this look like behind the scenes right now?
Well, he is definitely a suspect, and he is definitely in custody, and all the qualifiers that law enforcement uses, potential suspect, person of interest. Once the state's attorney took the podium at the press conference and said, we are preparing charges and we are preparing for a detention hearing where they're going to argue that this suspect is dangerous and a flight risk, that means he is on his way to being charged here. Some of the mechanics behind that, Caitlin, were there was that witness on the scene that we've all talked about. He snapped that picture. He saw that person. And there's a Secret Service agent who may have confronted him and seen him as well. But that witness was brought to the scene, and they did what we call a show-up, where, they have him in a vehicle where he can look out at the person in custody, and he's asked, is that the person you saw? And he answered in the affirmative, we are told by law enforcement sources, as he did that show up. And they then took him into custody, impounded that car, and so on. There are, two different stories in the forefront here. One, as Jonathan Wackrow really well explained, is a combination of old-fashioned police work, shoe leather, grab a witness, combined with modern technology. Here's a picture, here's a plate, put it into the LPR, license plate reader system, look for the first hit. It hits on 95. RTCC, the real-time crime center, is spinning the registered owner of that car, who it belongs to. All of this is happening rapidly, and Martin County, which hasn't waited, it has already flooded 95 looking for that car heading south with units. Then
Okay, that's goated. That's cool. That they were so proactive in trying to get this guy and assuming that he was going to go on I-95. Like, it makes sense because it is the nearest highway, and a lot of people who try to run away from the police, they do drive on highways, which now that I'm thinking about it is actually pretty dumb. Because usually, like, there's no tree cover. It's very easy to, like, spot them from helicopters, but that's what people who run away from police officers do, or they try to do a lot of the time. So very smart for the people on I-95 to go to I-95 and try to take this guy down, even before there were rumors or claims that he was on I-95.
That vehicle containment technique, they block the car in on 3 sides, come out with long guns, and when the sheriff describes, the Sheriff Snyder of Martin County describes his calm demeanor, we have to put that in context. When the suspect gets out of that Nissan vehicle, he is looking at multiple AR-15s and handguns pointed at him from multiple directions in this vehicle containment technique where they've blocked him in on 3 sides. So he can be nothing but calm. And he was compliant with the commands they gave him, and then he was taken into custody. So a lot went right today.
True, and it has to be
together.
Well, and Andrew McCabe, when you look at this, and Wolf, I was just thinking about this, when you look at what we're hearing from officials, and you see those 2 pictures there of the backpacks that were left at the scene that they found inside these bushes, on the right side of your screen, on the left, that's a GoPro camera, official said, that was mounted on the fence, and then 2 bags as well. Andrew McCabe, when you're an investigator and you're looking into that, I mean, it clearly speaks to some kind of premeditation here of what they're looking into when they're talking to this suspect who was in the bushes.
There's no question, Caitlin. This, as Jonathan mentioned this a little bit earlier, this whole setup indicates a very high level of pre-planning.
Yeah, true.
And that is done because this person, whoever he is, he clearly had the capacity to engage in that sort of structured and organized thought.
Yeah, we got to figure out what the whole plan was. We've got to figure out what the motive was. A lot of unanswered questions that we've got to have the answer to. So this is very unfortunate. Another I guess dark day in American history. But all of that said, like, is this rare? Is this uncommon? Is this unexpected? No. Someone else is going to try to shoot Trump at a later date. I think that's just an inevitability at this moment. We have been unsuccessful in convincing people on the left side of the aisle that assassinating Trump is a bad idea. So I think, honestly, Trump needs to take his security into his own hands. He needs to hire private security. Maybe not ditch the Secret Service. I mean, he can do that if he so chooses. But I think additional security measures are required. Because look, imagine if this dude's barrel was not sticking out of the bushes. If it wasn't sticking out of the bushes, the Secret Service would not have been able to see him, and Trump would probably be dead right now. So all that would have required was like some slightly better planning, and Trump would be dead. So, Trump is sort of dancing with death just by existing. And I think the fact that is the case is a bad sign for our democracy. But in the end of the day, God appoints all our leaders. So as a Christian, I'm not too scared or worried. So I'm just vibing and watching the news. So before I react to the presidential debate, there was this one funny video by Man Carrying Thing called YouTubers Talking About Drama versus Talking Politics, which the funny thing about this to me is that, like, I think in one of my bios on YouTube, I don't know if it's this account or I also have like Non-Newbie Streams channel, Non-Newbie Highlights channel. I don't know which of the channels it is, but on one of the channels, I literally say like political drama is not much different than YouTube drama or something like that. So I'm interested to see what he's going to say the difference is between the two. Why does it keep on registering double clicks? I'm trying to exit the full screen. Okay, here we go.
So a lot of people have been asking me to address the big drama. So a lot of people have been asking me to comment upon the political, politics. In order to really grasp the situation, I conducted a survey and did several hours of research. I'm just trying to get a grasp on who is in the wrong here and not jump to any conclusions. So here's what I think. My Peanuts Hurt's original video calling out Mr. Angry Farts, while compelling, misconstrued several important details. Namely, if the living room had enough ventilation, how could the fart stay in the room for upwards of 6 hours? Photo evidence shows there was a ceiling fan and an open window. It's hard to believe Mike Peanuts Hurts could pass out from such a low fart concentration.
Dude, the funny thing is, like, there are some drama channels that do like actual journalism. Now, to be fair, and I talked about this in the previous video, part of that is because like they're talking about like people committing crimes, which is like actual news. But at the same time, it is impressive how many of these people are like semi-journalists at this point.
Second, Mr. Angry Farts came to the hot tub stream at 11 p.m. My Peanuts Hurts called paramedics at 11:50. That means in 50 minutes, Mr. Angry Farts would have had to show up, digest enough of the chili to have an upset stomach, and fill the room with enough fart substance to qualify as a bioweapon.
The funny thing is, if there was actually actual drama about a YouTuber who was farting at a party, this is literally what we would see. We would literally see people trying to break down the time and being like, okay, well, dude, you know, did he have the time to have digested enough of the chili to have like ripped such a big fart? Like we would actually see this. I feel like this is less parody than it tends to be.
I just don't buy it. I'm fully on Mr. Angry Fart's side of this. Wait, Bush is president, right?
I think that a lot of political YouTubers are a little bit more articulate than that. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about others. Yeah, but that was humorous. That put a slight smile on my face. Whew. All right. So this is going to be fun. Oh my goodness. I'll just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. Trump did not do well in this presidential debate. I think Kamala Harris didn't do great in this debate either. I think this debate was pretty much a wash. But with all of that said, let's just dive head first into this presidential debate. This is between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
Tonight, the high-stakes showdown here in Philadelphia between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Their first face-to-face meeting in this presidential election, their first face-to-face meeting ever.
A historic race for president upended just weeks ago. President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
This is an ABC News special, the most consequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris.
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump.
That's like, yo, that cadence is the exact same as Kamala as Hillary Clinton when she was running for president. Like, isn't that the same tone that Hillary Clinton used when she said, "Pokemon, go to the polls"? Like,
we will soon be a great nation again.
Face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate. Here now,
Bro.
David Muir and Lynn.
Bro, this music is goated, dude. Is that some good music? I dig that, bro. Let's rewind. I want to get that. That's fine. That's fine.
Face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate. Here now, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
That's good.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer.
Also, there was a rumor that there was an ABC whistleblower who said that questions were shared with the Kamala Harris campaign. I find this relatively dubious. because there were questions that she did not answer well. And so I think with all the weeks of advanced preparing, if questions were provided to Kamala Harris, she would have answered them better. That said, I'm waiting on maybe not pins and needles, but maybe a couple pillow cushions to see whether or not this whistleblower comes forward. Marjorie Taylor Greene put out some fake news saying that the whistleblower had been killed, but that was not the case. So as far as we know, the ABC whistleblower is still alive. I am interested to see what the whistleblower has to say, what evidence the whistleblower has to present to the public as well. But I think it's just some slight context there.
Questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for two candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to die on this hill. For non-audience debates, we need to find a solution for these intros, because this is like one of the most awkward things. Watching these is like, it feels so cringeworthy. There's eerie silence. You have people just like walking up without saying anything and maybe saying like, how are you? How are you? Like in a very quiet and hushed tone. It's like, man, like we need to find a way to make this part not cringeworthy. It shouldn't be like we shouldn't be like cringing as we're watching the beginning of all of these debates.
Trump.
CNN even did it better because they did have their breaking news music on a loop in the background, but like, I don't know. I think it'd be great if we just had an audience that claps only for the intros and the outros for the entire debate. Even to have like a sealed off room where there's an audience that can clap and can cheer, and you can watch an alternate feed that has the audience in it, but the main feed does not have the audience in it. I think that'd be a great balance, because I think there's some people like myself who would like to see an audience in some of these debates. And I'm quite sure that after Trump is gone, the media will feel more comfortable having an audience in these debates. But yeah, those are my general thoughts on this. This is so awkward.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
See you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking.
Bro, Kamala Harris just looks like she's happy to be there. Like, I made it to a presidential debate. Wow, who would ever thought that this would happen? Whoever saw me being here?
Looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing. And the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children.
Now, I will say I praised the policy of a child tax credit when I did a previous stream, but thinking back about it now, I think that there are a few problems with it. I think the first one is, or at least the main one, is that a tax credit will only get you so far, because you can apply a tax credit, but like 5 or 10% less on your taxes doesn't magically translate into you being able to afford a car. right? Like there is, I think inflation is creating a bigger gap between parents being able to afford a new car or crib than taxes. Like if you were to go up to a parent of a young kid and you said, "Hey, do you want to buy a crib?" And the parent's like, yes, but I'm not able to buy a crib because of my financial situation. If you said, okay, what's the number one thing keeping you from buying the crib? Like, I don't think that the person's going to be like, oh, that one's easy. Federal income taxes. like I don't think that's going to be the answer that most Americans give. So I feel like that's not a satisfactory solution to this issue.
Passion, one of them is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sale.
I think, to be fair, Donald Trump does not care about the deficit. And I watched listened to part of an interview that J.D. Vance gave, talking about how, we're going to be able to cut taxes without exploding the deficit. Like, bro, this dude exploded the deficit by a massive margin, bigger than anyone had until Joe Biden stepped onto the scene. So to create this idea that Donald Trump cares about the deficit, I think is a little bit silly. I think even before COVID, he was increasing the deficit.
Sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had
no inflation is a little bit of an exaggeration. There was record low inflation, if I remember correctly, but there was some inflation.
Terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's
not in America's history. Maybe in modern history, most people in the key demographic in younger, so 41 years old and younger, probably have not seen inflation this bad, except for maybe the either the .com bubble or the 2008 housing crisis. So, maybe modern history, but no, not all of American history. Bro, what about 100 years ago when the economy was so bad that 3 and 4 and 5-year-old children needed to work in industrialized factories. I don't think we're anywhere close to that type of economy.
Being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago.
That is true. I was slightly surprised to see Kamala Harris shake her head at that because that's certifiably true. There are actually charts that go on and say that. It's for certain items, to be fair. It's not every single item or even the average item that you'll find in the store, but it is true that for a lot of items, costs have risen ridiculously.
This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions, and
okay, I want to know this. Where is he getting the claim that people are being shipped to America from mental institutions from? Because I looked this up. I think the last presidential debate, I could not find proof of this claim anywhere. I couldn't hear anyone else making this claim except for Trump. So I want to know where he's getting this from. It sounds almost like he's making it up, but I'm not sure if that's what he's doing.
insane asylums, and they're coming in.
Usually Trump is saying things that he's just like heard on like Fox News or seen like memes of online and stuff. So,
and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions.
I like Kamala Harris is shaking her head. It's like no, those are all Asian jobs. But like, it is true. I like how he did not fall into the blunder of calling them black jobs, though. I don't think that saying black jobs is like a bad thing, but the media will frame that as something negative or racist. So it's nice that like Trump avoided stepping into that pile of doo-doo. But, you know, he does make some blunders later on in this debate, as we'll see.
Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again, and even better.
I love it, like Kamala Harris, while Trump was going on that rant, was sort of like trying to put on a face where it's like, oh, I'm like making fun of you. But like he's talking about like violent illegal immigrants sort of like ravaging various states. It almost comes across as she's laughing or like acting like this issue isn't real, or that even if it's real, it's not serious. And I think this is a bad optics play on her part. I don't know. Of course, the media is not going to focus on that, so it's not going to result in like a lot of backlash to her. But like, she's over there smiling and smirking while Trump is referencing like literal stories, like real, true stories that people have like gone and gotten like reports of and eyewitness accounts and 911 phone calls of, where it's like, yeah, also like the security camera footage as well of like, yeah, all these Venezuelans with guns running around terrorizing citizens and like kicking people out of their apartments. So it's like, we're talking about real issues, and Kamala Harris is over here like, bro, this ain't no sitcom. Like, okay, like, you can't be behaving like this on a presidential debate stage.
We're going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression.
Okay, I'm sorry. Does Donald Trump run the NIH? Or actually, you know what? He is sort of in charge of it. But it's not his job to micromanage like everything that happens with the NIH. I do think that a lot of the stuff that went on with the Wuhan lab was, some of it could have been mitigated. Trump should not have kept in the guy who unsuccessfully managed the AIDS crisis to continue being the head of the NIH. However, I didn't Fauci like hide information and lie. So like, you can only blame Donald Trump so much for the Wuhan lab incident.
Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling.
And some of that's going to come from Kamala Harris if we just watch.
What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing.
He's generally right, but I will say that, a lot of people who work from are affiliated with Project 2025. He's completely right that, like, he is under no obligation to follow or obey the dictates of Project 2025. I agree. I believe Trump when he says that he has not read Project 2025, but nothing to do with it. Mostly true, I would say, but maybe not entirely.
Thing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows.
Also, I think when you look at how many groups have co-signed a Project 2025 on the right, it's pretty hard to find Republicans who are not affiliated with any of the groups. Like, seriously, are we going to have a bunch of Republicans running around disavowing, like, what's it called? TPUSA now? Like, no.
Knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Mm-hmm. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people...
China made some of those too, but yeah.
Give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And
is she gonna rebut anything that Trump said? Or is she just gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna make a great economy for you guys, trust me? Like, I'm just realizing, I can't believe, when I first saw this, I didn't notice how much she just sidestepped all of the attacks that Trump had. Trump seemed to come loaded for bear with facts on that one. And Kamala Harris replied with, oh, trust me, my economy is going to be good.
And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession.
Okay, but I don't vote based on what 16 Nobel laureates say. Just tell me what the policies are, and I'll decide whether I agree with the policies. Interesting that Kamala Harris isn't talking about what those policies are. I think part of that is, of course, is that they got soundly ridiculed when she rolled it out. I actually have a video about that, where she basically sort of got the smackdown from even CNN because her policies were so radical. But I think because of how radical her policies are, it makes sense that she's committing to the appeal to authority fallacy, rather than standing on our own policies and bragging about how great they are. Because, once you get to the specifics, you'll be like, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth.
Okay, wait. So if we want to commit to the appeal to authority fallacy, hey, Trump spoke to economic experts, and they like his plan better, huh? Huh? So which experts are you gonna believe? The ones that say, one person's plan is good or the ones who say another person's plans are good. I like how leftists would love to tout things saying, oh, look at what this person said about Trump, when like they will never like accept someone saying something negative about Trump. Like no one's going to, or saying something positive about Trump. Like no one is ever on the far left going to be like, or even in the mainline left, none of them are ever going to be like, oh, you look at what this person said about Trump. He thinks he's going to be a great president. Isn't that interesting? You never see that rhetoric from the left. It's always negative things. And even when there's like, you know, some economic experts saying that Trump's plan is great, you will never hear the mainstream media mention that.
Value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
This surprised me because, you know, to say that Kamala Harris doesn't have a plan in general isn't entirely inaccurate. But the one thing that Kamala Harris does have a plan on is on the economy. This was the wrong time to use this line. Kamala Harris took 50 days or 30 days or however long it took for her to come up with what to do about the economy, when there are all sorts of other things going on. Like, what about national security, right? What about foreign policy? What about border security? All types of things that matter to a lot of people that Kamala Harris still doesn't have a plan on. So, you know, it's so funny to me that Donald Trump picked the one thing that Kamala Harris does have a plan on to say she has no plan.
President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The vice president brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have...
That's not true. Tariffs almost always result in higher prices for Americans because anyone who's selling a product that has higher tariffs is going to pass that bill down to the consumer. Tariffs haven't been bad when Trump did it. They've been bad when Joe Biden does it. I don't know why anyone is going to Kamala Harris and saying, hey, are you going to do tariffs like Joe Biden does? Because Joe Biden does tariffs too, and he initiates trade wars. So I don't. Both sides here are bad on this, but I wish that Kamala Harris was being hit on this more because it's something that her boss supports too.
And who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years.
And those high prices will be passed on to American consumers.
I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else.
True. Well, I mean, to say that people can't afford that stuff, like, it's harder to afford that stuff. But I must say, like, the pandemic was mostly under control when Trump left office. It boggles my mind that we have recovered almost all the lost jobs from the pandemic, and yet the inflation is worse than it was when Trump left office. That's now, when you drill down to why that's the case, it does make sense. We had the Great American Rescue Plan, which is basically just like a deficit expander. We had Trump's COVID stimmies, which also is basically a deficit spender, but it also was a print all command to the money printers. Like, that just ballooned the amount of currency that's in circulation. So of course that's going to lead to inflation. Of course that's going to cause negative effects on that front. So it doesn't really surprise me all that much. But to me, it's just very ironic that, by the way, this is something that Joe Biden has made worse with the Great American Rescue Plan or whatever it was called. They just basically just ballooned the national debt. That's all it did. And on top of that, Joe Biden also limited oil production for a time, which really, really hurt a lot of aspects of our economy. So it's just crazy to me that Joe Biden has mismanaged this situation so poorly that we're basically without COVID now, and the economy is worse than it was when we did have COVID. Part of that being Trump's fault, but I think maybe not all of it.
The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
I like that pushback. There was very little pushback from any of the moderators towards Kamala Harris, but we did get some there. I'm appreciative of that.
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out when a policy about China...
Is that selling us out? Chat, is creating a good and selling it, is that selling us out? Let me know. Do you think that we should not export goods to China anymore? What's so bad about this?
Should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century.
Man, she's out here complaining that China is buying our chips. What? Is she supposed to be like, China shouldn't be buying our chips? We should be buying their chips. Like, what's the rebuttal? What's the alternative? Like, she's mad that, like, I don't know, they're using chips for their military, which I would understand if it wasn't that, if we're not selling them, they're going to make them. Someone else is going to make them. Why not allow ourselves to benefit from that? Why not, bolster tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of American jobs with these chips that we're selling to folks in China? Like, what? Would you rather they go to the Swiss? Would you rather they go to Japan? Would you rather those jobs go to China? Or would you like to support American jobs? Yeah, tough question, huh?
Making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, ! When we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like...
Wait, so we didn't sell chips to China? That was a lie? Huh. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that's a lie, but interesting. I had to just assume that he was right. I don't know.
They have... I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed...
Yeah, she doesn't seem to have a policy about manufacturing like semiconductors or anything like that, from what I can tell. Now, Joe Biden has the CHIPS Act, which, agree with it or disagree with it, it is creating and bolstering American jobs.
3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics.
I don't know if it's fair to go that far, because she hasn't necessarily said that she's a Marxist, but I will say she seems to agree with, what was it? I can't remember if it was communism or socialism, but she picked a running mate who praised communism / socialism. I forget which of the two, one of the isms. So I think it's fair to infer that she might lean in that direction, especially when she is talking about increasing so many taxes on things like property and on the rich. This is the type of rhetoric you would see from a Marxist. So it seems like she's Marxist leaning. Doesn't necessarily mean that she actually is a Marxist, though.
And he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of
Kamala Harris is so unserious
people, that what she's done to
have you seen a more unserious post? Like, this is not. I think if Trump had done well in this debate, Kamala Harris would be ripped apart for her behavior here, because this is not like, yeah, look, most female presidential candidate. Like, no, actually, no. Carly Fiorina, Marianne Williamson, Hillary Clinton, none of them, had these sorts of strange mannerisms during presidential debates.
To our country. And when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy.
True.
They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I don't like that rhetoric, too, that, they must hate our country if they do policies I don't like, because the vast majority of people who are political actors, they don't hate the country. We just disagree on what to do to solve the problems in our country. I see this rhetoric a lot when it comes to like gun control. When the gun control lobby is all like, Republicans don't care about the kids in our schools because they don't want to do anything. Like, they do want to do something, but it's just not what you want to do. And our government is too equal for just one person just to be able to railroad over the wishes of the other. So, of course, we're not going to see national solutions to this problem, even though it's the same thing that's been passed over and over again. We passed dozens of gun control bills, and we still see school shootings. So, I mean, I guess a lot of people want to be like goofy to be like, oh, do it again. But inaction, or the action you don't like, doesn't mean that the other person doesn't care. I don't think that Kamala Harris was to tear apart the country. She might do it, but if she did, they'd be on accident. I don't think she's trying to do that on purpose.
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason
I will say that when it comes to abortion, unless someone's going to go off the deep end and sign some sort of executive order, abortion is a complete non-issue when it comes to who we pick as president, in my opinion, because there's nothing the president is going to be able to do. There's no way that one side of the political aisle even agrees on what to do for a national solution to the abortion problem. or the abortion issue, as far as settling it federally, there's no way that enough people are going to get together in Congress to be able to pass a bill that the president can sign. No way. Even though the vast majority of America has decided we don't like third trimester abortions. And if you pass the bill through that, I think both the Republican and Democrat president would sign a third trimester abortion ban, but nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to do it because we have a lot of pro-lifers who are essentially absolutist abolitionists, where they're like, we cannot support anything that allows abortion to continue. And by doing that, they are supporting the status quo, which allows abortion to continue. Like, we have to take lessons from the left here. The left moved the needle by saying, let's move 1 centimeter, and then they moved a meter, and then they moved a kilometer. And then by then, they're standing 10 kilometers to the south, and they're like, what's wrong with you? You're so extreme. Why are you so far away from us? So, like, for the life of me, I don't understand why pro-lifers don't adopt the same tactic.
I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous.
And this annoyed me because the fact checkers who lashed out at Trump were so blatantly wrong on this. There are multiple states that have abortions in the 9th month.
Previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
I like how Trump actually used some precise language here, because this is more accurate than what he usually said. Like, I think in the past he said that in Virginia they were doing infanticide. Here he's saying the former governor was supporting infanticide, which is accurate. That's what he said during his radio appearance.
And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born. Is okay.
Yes, he supported both things, passed legislations that do that, no restrictions on abortion at all from what I've read. So, yeah, like, he's correct. And all the 3 other participants in this debate were completely wrong.
And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it.
True.
And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where...
Bro, the irony of having a fact checking in a debate where the fact checkers are lying is crazy to me. And now we see why Trump didn't want to go on ABC News. It wasn't that he was scared or he was afraid. It's that he knew that they would be lying and basically debating him. Like, he wanted to complain about the bias. Well, here is the bias, ladies and gentlemen.
It is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get you.
Now, I think that there is a technicality where she's correct, where because of the, I think, Born Alive Act of 2002, technically, infanticide is illegal at the federal level. But the problem is there is no prescribed punishment. So you could try to prosecute this, but you don't really know what the punishment for that is going to be. It could be jail time. It could be community service. It could be $5. Like we really don't know. And so there have been multiple bills brought up past that, like throughout the 2 decades since that bill was signed into law, where people are trying to determine a punishment for infanticide, but that has been struck down by ostensibly pro-choicers. I think I could be misspeaking there.
A response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually.
Yeah, we just heard some from the moderator there. What's her name? Lindsay Davis. Lindsay Davis. Yeah, she lied.
A surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans.
They're not Trump abortion bans, but they are abortion bans, so we'll take what we can get. Let's go, ladies and gentlemen. I'll take it.
Make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care in
healthcare, abortions, big difference.
In one state, it provides prison for life.
Let's go. There we go. That's what we like to see.
Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which
is extremely based, by the way. We should have no exceptions for either of those things, because it's like, oh, you know what? I think murdering you should be fine because of the way you were conceived or the situation or relationship that occurred between your parents. Like, no, people would look at you like you're bonkers. So of course we should treat babies in the womb the same way.
Understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is
okay, but we don't get to murder children because of what their parents did. So
it's immoral, and one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government and
wait, yo. So this thing, my phone thought that I was talking to it. And it agrees. Google agrees with my take. I said, we don't get to murder children because of what their parents did. Google agrees. Google says, I agree. It is a fundamental principle of justice that a child should not be punished for the actions of their parents. Children are innocent individuals who deserve protection and opportunities to lead fulfilling lives regardless of their parents' behavior. The idea of harming a child because the parents' actions is morally reprehensible and a violation of human rights. Hey, I didn't say it. Google said it. So, and a lot of y'all secular people try to treat neural networks like gods. So, your deity has spoken.
Donald Trump certainly should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail. And
bro, if you want to murder your kid, vote harder, okay? Like, what can I say? What can I say? This has all been left to the states. I will say, to be fair to the abortion lobby, to be fair to the baby murderers, there have been, I think, maybe a couple dozen cases across the country where there were procedures that should have been allowed to have been performed that would have saved the lives of the mothers or prevented them from being seriously or grievously injured or something. And unfortunately, those cases those cases got thrown out and the appeals were lost. I think that is unfortunate. I think that once we do have a full abolition of abortion, like recreational abortion, I think would be a good way to put it, we do need to carve out some very, very strict, strongly worded, and objective exceptions for the life of the mother, because pretty much all pro-lifers agree that exceptions for the life of the mother is important. I think the problem is some legislatures, and rightfully so, worry that the abortion lobby is going to use wiggle room in that wording to reclassify what it means for something to threaten the life of the mother or the health of the mother. It could even be something as frivolous or trivial, not that it's frivolous or trivial, but even something like mental health could be enough to qualify as something that would harm a parent enough to qualify for the killing of the child. So I can understand why people are hesitant now to put in protections for the life of the mother, but I still think that those exemptions are important, and it is something that we need to look into. That is one thing that I agree with the abortion lobby on.
And she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot? She didn't want that? Her husband didn't want that?
But they voted for it, right? Like,
A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest? Being forced to carry a pregnancy to term? They don't want that.
I mean, bro, if you were assaulted, then like it wasn't your decision to be pregnant. So it wasn't. The person who forced the person to be pregnant was the person who committed the assault. It wasn't the state. So you can't blame. You're blaming the state for the natural result of the assault of women. That's not necessarily how it works. I mean, I do to a degree wish that we had artificial wombs that we could just throw all these babies in for people who do get assaulted and don't want to carry these babies to term. But at the end of the day, it's not worth murdering people just for the sake of what was done to the parents or what the parents did.
And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Even if she's telling the truth about, and also, I will say I oppose child abuse, even though I support property rights. So yeah, is that a checkmate? Am I being hypocritical there? But anyways, the analogy I make is that like, you support you must oppose women's autonomy if you oppose abortion. Was like, I mean, what do I oppose property rights if I oppose child abuse? Like, what? You're telling me I can't do whatever I want with my own property? You're telling me that I can't withhold food for my children? It's my food. I get to say who gets to eat it, who can't. Like, no, you should go to jail. Rightfully so. You do have an obligation to take care of your children if they cannot take care of themselves, and they are minors, in my opinion. But this I think also betrays either intentional deceit or just a lack of knowledge about Trump's plans and positions on abortion. He has actually himself said that he believes there should be protections for abortions in certain cases. He seems to be basically pro-choice at this point. It's so funny because these people are about to argue about something that they virtually agree on. I think maybe they might have a difference on whether or not first trimester. No, they might disagree on whether or not third trimester abortions should be allowed. But in general, Trump has spoken out multiple times in how much he supports abortion. So, like, you just got pro-choice people going at it about how pro-choice they are.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states. And
one thing I think he's pointing to here is how some people have posited that it would be unconstitutional because of the Supreme Court case for there to be a federal ban on abortion. I've heard multiple people say, even pro-life people say, that there can be no federal ban on abortion because the ruling kicked it down to the states. I disagree. From everything that I've read, it seems like the ruling nullifies Roe v. Wade. It effectually kicks it down to the states, but it doesn't say that there can't be a federal verdict on whether or not abortion is legal or illegal. So, there is that factor as well. There's a possibility that all abortion in infanticide could be legalized, or it could be all criminalized. We just have to get the right people in the Congress.
The states are voting, and it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart. And they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought.
Yeah, the majority of constitutional scholars have said that Roe v. Wade was a bad decision, and they've wanted it to be kicked down to the states because they think it makes the most sense.
Was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no. I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, well,
True. That wasn't the timing of this was bad because I think Joe Biden had spent like several days, even like up to 1 or 2 weeks at the beach, and then the day before this he did go and conduct some official business. So again, another line of poor timing here. But I'm just now realizing we're 20 minutes into this debate, and we're, I think, seeing the first moment of Trump being unfocused. When I first saw this debate, Trump appeared to be unfocused to me. It seemed like he was all over the place, but here he seems to be mostly on track. When I'm rewatching this with more critical eyes in hindsight, here he is, going off on a tangent. But I think it's mostly because he wants to take advantage of the amount of time that he has to respond to attack Kamala Harris and the Biden administration on other aspects of the presidency.
Call him a boss. He spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it.
He does. I think that he should give a yes or no answer. I think the problem is he wants to appeal to a broad base. A lot of people know his track record on abortion in the past, so he's going to get a lot of pro-lifers. What he wants now is the pro-choice vote. He's trying to straddle the fence, and I think when you sit on the fence like this, it becomes very clear that most of your weight is on one side, even if you're still technically on fenestrated. So I wish that he'd given a straight answer. I think that he thinks it's politically savvy to not give a straight answer, but you don't really do yourself any services here. I don't think that him hemming and hawing is going to win over any wannabe baby murderers.
Because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America.
That's a good answer because there's some people who would propose extremely radical abortion policies, including Tim Walz, that would basically have no restrictions on abortion at all and even support infanticide. It was smart for Kamala Harris to say, let's just put it back to the way Roe v. Wade was, rather than just giving a yes or no answer there. But I think here she's going to lie again, saying that there are no places that allow third trimester post-birth abortions or something.
is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
It's insulting to tell the truth, Trump. Did you know that?
And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening?
There is that as well. There's controversy over that. I need to learn more about the science of it, but I lean towards opposing IVF. But I mean, yeah, I understand the arguments on both sides. Trump has made the argument for IVF, saying that it's, parents trying to have children and we should be supporting people trying to have children. I think that's the mainstream view. Trump has spoken out very publicly in favor of IVF. So, she's kind of, actually I shouldn't use that simile because that would feel pretty not appropriate to use for Kamala Harris. But yeah, she's just kind of just like making that up as she goes along. I think it'd be the fair way to put that.
Happening in our country, working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs.
Well, at least it's harder. And it's not healthcare, by the way. It's abortion. Murder is not healthcare. No matter how many times you stab me, it's never going to be healthcare.
Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body.
Yeah, and I support property rights, but I oppose child abuse.
And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF.
True.
Which
that
is
was a blatant lie. How it's insane. This is like one of like the most like public things. This made the pro-life community so upset to the point where I think I talked about this too, where it's like when it comes to IVF, it's very strongly in support of that. He even I'm gonna get ahead of myself. I'm about to say what he's gonna say, but like you would think that if fact checkers were there to just check the facts, that they would call out Kamala Harris on some of these lies, but no, they're only here to debate Donald Trump.
Fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer?
Yo, I think it says something that Kamala Harris is afraid to say which abortions she supports. The funny thing is, the answer to all of this is yes, because she supports the protections for abortion rights that were instated under Roe v. Wade, which allowed for such abortions to take place. But when you talk about supporting the murder of a kid at 7, 8, 9 months, that sounds ugly. That sounds bad, and that's why the Democrats in the mainstream media love to say, "Oh, this never happens. Nobody ever gets an abortion in the 7th, 8th, 9th trimester," even though it's true. Look, if no one ever got those abortions, then why not have a ban on it? Right? Why not have a ban on it? That's like saying, oh, you know what? No one ever eats arsenic. Well, some people might eat arsenic, so why not make a law against it? Like, and then you start sweating profusely, be like, no, we must make it legal to eat arsenic. We must make it legal to eat arsenic. Well, even though no one ever does it, we need to keep it legal. It's like, at some point, you're gonna get some funny looks for how much you're defending the legality of something that you're simultaneously claiming that no one ever does.
The problem,
would you
because
veto?
Under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the ninth
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President...
Some fair questions. I was impressed by some of the fair questions that were asked here.
Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
Woo! Now that's a question right there. That's a question.
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened?
Wait, transnational migrants? It sounds pretty woke to me.
Happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
Not true. Not true. If you look at the reasonings why, and to be fair, Google and stuff, they've memory hold this. But if you look at the actual initial reasons why people voted against this bill, is because they actually took a second look at the bill and they were like, hold on, there are all these provisions for Joe Biden to arbitrarily suspend these new restrictions on illegal immigration. And what this would basically allow is Joe Biden just be like, oh, well, you know what? I don't want to do these restrictions anymore. Let's just keep all of the illegal immigrants coming into the country while passing we're going to protect the border bill. So he has an optics win of being like, we just passed the yay border bill. Look at us doing things about the border. Meanwhile, the same amount of people are coming into the country illegally because Joe Biden is signing arbitrary exemptions for the very same policy that he signed into law. So, it was to a degree fighting an optics game, but at the same time, it was a completely toothless bill. Whether or not it was signed or not signed would have changed nothing because the situation at the border would have been the exact same. That's the true reason why that bill got voted against. I'm kind of annoyed that people aren't pointing this out, especially because Google has memory hold this. I would hope that people like Tim Pool and Dan Bongino and other folks on the right side, the political commentary, would point this out. But it's a straight fact. That's true. It was talked about at the time, but no one brings it up or mentions it now, and Google has buried those search results.
And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early.
So you're telling me that Kamala Harris's solution to the border is to pass a bill that has arbitrary exemptions for all of the restrictions on illegal immigration, and then tell people to go to a Donald Trump rally and hear him talk about Hannibal Lecter? That's a strange immigration platform to me, but okay, I guess. Rock on, Queen.
Out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk.
Okay. I'm gonna say I don't like all of Trump's rallies. Okay, I think that some of them are kind of cringy. I think a lot of them are too like rah rah. I think there are a lot of cultish people there because it is the MAGA crowd after all. But at the same time, the idea that like Trump doesn't talk about the American people in his rally. Like, it's another thing where it's like you have to either be lying on purpose or lying on accident because you just don't know what Trump has been up to, because he talks about the American people all the time. He talks about how much he loves America. He talks about how much he loves the people in America, how much he loves his supporters in particular. So we just have like tons of serial lying. I feel like for... people were saying that Trump lied all the time during the debate. It almost feels like Kamala Harris has lied more during this debate. Oh, and also, I'm going to change my plans on the reaction for this debate, by the way. I am going to be cutting it off at the midway point during the debate because I am somewhat strapped for time. So we'll be cutting it off in the middle of the debate. I will come back during a future stream to finish the rest of the debate. I think that cuts it down to manageable chunks because we're halfway through this reaction. This will be 1 hour. And after that, we'll have another hour. And then I think that'll be that. I'll splice them together. Then I'll make one video, and I think that'll work. So,
about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go.
Okay, when Quavo's performing, sure. If it's a battleground state in some cases, yes, people show up. But half the time it's like, either an empty room or essentially a sound stage. Like there's not, you're not really going to be lost in a crowd at a Kamala Harris rally, if you know what I mean.
And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there.
I have not heard evidence that she is paying them to be there, but she is bussing them in.
And then showing them in a different light. So she can't.
Yeah, that is true.
Talk about that.
Then we have our serious presidential figure, Kamala Harris, there, sitting here like this. Yeah. Hey, look, if I do this, maybe you'll vote for me too. Like, this is so weird. So weird.
People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failure.
He missed an opportunity there to talk about his momentum and how many people have his support is a lot more passionate than Kamala Harris's support. Because the real reason why Donald Trump's rallies are so big is not because people want to take the country back. It's because it's essentially a cult of personality, if we're going to be honest. That's a big reason why Trump's rallies are so large. But on top of that, it's that Trump has organic support. He has people who love him. He has people who love his vision for the country. When it comes to Kamala Harris, she has like blue and on people, like vote blue no matter who. They could have nominated a scarecrow and they would still be voting. So like, it's not like people are specifically excited about Kamala Harris or supportive of Kamala Harris being president of the United States. I mean, some of them, of course, they want the brownie points of saying, oh, we voted for a black woman to be president, or we voted for an Indian woman to be president, depending on what Kamala Harris's race happens to be in a particular day. No, but for real though, like there, sorry, there are like, there are far fewer people who are that like excited for Kamala Harris. Like, you don't really hear many people being like, man, I'm so glad Kamala Harris ended up being the nominee. Like, I was rooting for her the whole time. I think there's one person in my Discord server who was like, I wanted Kamala Harris to be president like 2 years ago. And I have proof of that. It's in the banner on my X account. But beyond that, I have not heard a single person be like, oh yeah, I really wanted Kamala Harris to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. I think that she would make a great president. You generally don't hear people saying that genuinely. There's a reason why her campaign crashed and burned so early in the Democratic nominee process, all the way back in like, what was that, like 2020? She didn't do well. She basically came in last, or like the middle at best, and now she got propped up just because the color of the color of her skin and the fact that she's a woman.
Nation, and it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over.
What does that have to do with World War III? That was a little bit strange.
The United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
That's true, but to be fair, I think the COVID stimulus are the types of things that would also give us Venezuela on steroids. On the eating the dogs thing, okay. I'm not going to pretend that this is a racist attack like the mainstream media will, or the left will, or Kamala Harris supporters will. I'm not going to pretend that that's racist at all, to say that's what's happening, because these are based on claims that are coming from the ground. Now, to be fair, we haven't seen a successful criminal investigation that investigated and found evidence of this taking place. We see some anecdotal videos of people apparently doing this. We see people grabbing up cats and throwing them into garbage bags, basically, while they're wriggling around, but no proof that they're killing them. No proof that they're doing anything more than at most dog napping or in cat napping. And we also have no proof that this actually is real. It could all be actors or people making TikTok videos in an effort to fool people. So I think it's important to take claims with a grain of salt. Now, if there are a billion trillion videos of cats being scooped up, or Haitians ripping up the stomachs and eating their innards, then sure, maybe believe them then. But at this point, I think what we have is half a dozen videos that maybe a couple dozen Springfield citizens are pointed to and saying, hey, this is a thing. We need to do something about this. When, it's a rumor. It's unsubstantiated, but I don't think it means it's necessarily false. We just need more investigations into it.
I just want to clarify.
Also, I think you'd have to be a racist to think that that's racist, because if you hear people saying that some migrants are eating the cats and dogs, and your first thought is, well, that can't be true, because if that's true, that means that that it's because of the color of their skin or where they came from, and they can't help themselves from eating the cats and eating the dogs because they're Haitians. If that's gonna be your takeaway, there is little distinguishing you from the alt-right people who are running around also saying look at all these uncivilized brutes that we're importing into our country. So it's a massive self-own, I guess, or self-report, to be oh, how racist must you be to be pointing to these claims that the citizens are themselves are alleging,
Success will end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed.
Oh! Well, the city manager said it didn't happen, so it must be true. It must be true. Wow. I guess all the dozens of people taking videos must be lying. It must be all the people complaining about their pets going missing must not be telling the truth. All the eyewitness accounts must be lying. I like the idea that we talked to one person who said that there's no credible report. That just automatically means that this rumor is not true. It's comical. It's hilarious. And I think, to be honest, it's inevitable that at some point one of these claims is substantiated. That doesn't mean it's widespread. It doesn't mean it happens as much as a lot of the people on Facebook or Instagram or whoever would want you to believe. But at the same time, you can't just be oh, well, the city manager said it, so that sort of closes the case on that one, friendo. Like.
Or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this,
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
True, because no city manager is going to, especially when you haven't had like criminal cases that have sort of substantiated these claims. You're not going to run around saying, oh yeah. We've heard people running around saying that cats are getting like abducted and eaten by illegal immigrants. Like you would, because it makes your city look bad, right? You would need to have like concrete proof and evidence in order to be comfortable saying, hey, we know for sure that this is something that happens, because anything else is just negative optics on your end. So, and also it's kind of a smart move as well if they know that this is actually something that's happening, because they could do an investigation, find something that like proof that it happened, and then come out with it like in two months and be like, oh, hey, you know what, we actually did an investigation, we found one cat was killed and eaten by an illegal immigrant. But by then, like the whole cycle is blown over, the election's over, like it doesn't matter. So it's a smart political move to deny it, even if it might not be false.
People are on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again,
That also is
Springfield city
true.
manager.
And I think it is also fair to point out that some of the people who made these claims were at like council meetings and said that they would be willing to testify under oath to this alleged fact. So there's that to consider.
Says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
Look, if it's true, you know what's actually extreme is the migrants who are doing this. That would be extreme, not pointing out the fact that it's happening. A lot of people, I think even some people in my Discord were saying like, yo, this is crazy that he would say this. He's saying crazy things. So it's like, let's say that this is true. It might not be true, but it might be true as well. We have a lot of reports, so generally where there's smoke, there's fire. If something absurd is happening, is it absurd to point it out? I would say no. But you know, if it makes Democrats look bad, a Democrat would say yes.
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain.
Well, it's because they're rhinos and Trump isn't a rhino. Not that he's a conservative either. He's a moderate, but he's not a rhino.
Including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term.
Hold on, give me 1 second here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry about that, y'all. I thought I heard someone banging on my door, but I guess I was mistaken. Let's continue.
And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think
that if your cat's getting abducted and killed by a Haitian migrant, that would affect you, but okay.
the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, See, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with that.
Okay, to be fair, they did fire the person who filmed himself having gay sex in the White House, so there was that.
Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed, and I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me they can write books, with nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job.
I mean, with other people, yes, but maybe not with Joe Biden. No one's going to be like, oh, I'm really interested to see how Joe Biden was able to pull off such a successful presidency. I really want to read the memoir of his, someone from his, on his staff or someone in his cabinet. Like, no one's really going to be doing that.
And they never
unless, of course, it's about the Afghanistan, because they want to see how it ended up being such a terrible disaster.
Fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to
no, that's a good way to have many books written about you. Believe me, people are writing books about this as we speak, dude.
Finish. I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to use local police, wouldn't local police have a say in what that would look like? So he can't 100% give an answer unless the federal authorities would be in charge of that operation, I would imagine.
Is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form.
Yeah, see, one thing that's interesting is if you look at the stats, crime is down. But I think one thing it's fair to point out is that we've got a lot of crooked DAs who don't want to press charges on people of color because they want to, because they're liberal and they want to help prevent or stave off the racial imbalance in the criminal justice system. And so, one thing that helps that is statistically is if you take black criminals and Hispanic criminals and African criminals and other criminals, and you don't prosecute them, because what that means is if you look at the ratio, it's more white people and less people of color being in jail. So I don't know why so few people are pointing this out, but I mean, that is a major reason why crime stats are low. It's also a major reason why a lot of times you'll see someone running around and assaulting someone, getting arrested, and then charges being dropped or not being placed at all. And then you see that person doing the same thing over and over and over again for like another 3 or 4 times.
of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI defrauded. They were defrauding statements. They didn't include.
It's not the Wait, what?
The worst cities. They
Is that
didn't
true?
include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond.
Interesting take.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found
You don't want to play this game. Please don't.
liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do.
Wait. Shouldn't we turn the page on the Joe Biden administration? They're the ones who've been in charge for the past 4 years. Why do Americans have so many needs that are unmet by Joe Biden? I feel like someone should maybe ask that question.
About the housing shortage, which I have a plan for. Address what we must do to support our small businesses. Address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the...
Winning most of them is an interesting take. I don't know that he's won any of those cases in court. Some of the cases have been dismissed because of the Supreme Court ruling, but I don't know if he's won any of them. They've gone all the way through the trial process and Trump is found not guilty.
Decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the justice.
Weaponization has happened in this country, but he just wasn't the target. It's happened against pro-lifers. Obama sicked the FBI. No, I think both the FBI and the IRS on pro-lifers before. Similar things have happened in other cases. Conservatives have been put on no-fly lists as well. The idea that weaponization of these departments of the United States of America is new is a little bit silly, but it's a slippery slope that has gotten us to this point.
Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases, and then they say, "Oh, he's a criminal." They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty.
I don't know. It's not like Joe Biden had any sort of dictate telling people, hey, go make up crimes against Donald Trump. But it's more of a thing of, if you've got a lot of DAs and prosecutors in various states who are Democrats, and they have been, in some cases, actively campaigning on getting Trump jailed and convicted on anything. It doesn't matter what the crime is, because they haven't been looking for crimes; they've been looking for the criminal. So there is that. That's a lot different than Joe Biden having some sort of mastermind plan to get Donald Trump behind bars.
Guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, "Oh, that's the toughest of them all." A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here.
I think the Georgia case is real, but you've got a terrible prosecutor. I personally think that Trump is guilty of a crime in that case. You can't, I don't know if Trump is guilty when it comes to intent, but from what it sounded like on that phone call, there are multiple ways you could take that. I think a reasonable person could take that to mean, hey, make up votes so that I win this state. And so because of that, I think you could probably get him on something on that. But that whole case needs to be retried. Fani Willis has done a terrible job of prosecuting it. Look, if Trump has committed a crime, I would like to see him convicted and sentenced appropriately. But that's not going to happen with Fani Willis, because either the case is going to get thrown out because it's been so terribly mismanaged, or he's going to be found guilty and overly punished. Like, he's going to get a punishment that's out of proportion with the actual crime if you factor in the intent and the words actually spoken and all that stuff. So it's like I have trouble believing justice is going to be served in that particular case.
Your Vice President Harris on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again.
I don't know whether or not I agree with that. I've read multiple analyses of the ruling. But I'm just not sure if people are going to read that ruling the way that I read it. But that's just me.
Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize.
Okay, that was before he became president. Did he terminate the Constitution of the United States? I think is an important question to ask. He also said he would open up the libel laws against mainstream media outlets for lying against him. He also said lock her up. Did Trump do any of those things? Important questions to ask yourself.
The Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean.
I'm not a big fan of that, but I don't know what policy that would lead to. There's no policy that connects with that.
If Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me.
To be fair, I wish they'd stuck to the rules. I think at a certain point in this debate, they were just basically allowing crosstalk. Whenever someone wanted to speak, they would unmute the mic. Not a big fan of that. I think one reason the last debate worked so well was because that rule was respected. Trump tests the waters to see what's going to be allowed, and once the moderators allow something, he does it. And so, if they had kept the mics muted for Kamala Harris when she wanted to speak over Donald Trump, he wouldn't be saying anything right now. So they really should have stuck to these rules, and you wouldn't have this sort of crosstalk. Not that I think it was particularly terrible. I think it's nice for Trump to be able to hit back on this. But if we're going to agree to rules, then you should abide by them.
She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy.
Right, because where are all the Trump supporters doing assassination attempts on Kamala Harris? Funny thing is, after this debate took place, Donald Trump had yet another assassination attempt. By the time this video goes up on the Non-Newbie Highlights channel, for all I know, Trump could be dead from a third assassination attempt. For all we know. Could very well be the case. So I think the real threat to democracy are these loony blue-anon conspiracy theorists who are running around saying that Trump is racist, saying that Trump is Hitler, saying that Trump is a Nazi, saying that Trump is alt-right, xenophobic, all of these buzzwords, saying that he wants to topple America, get rid of the democratic system. These are the real people who are the threats to democracy. But I mean, that doesn't mean anything should be done to them. Don't punch them. Let them vote still. They should all have the same freedoms as normal Americans. But if we're going to talk about who is actually going to threaten democracy, we should point at the people who are trying to shoot and kill a presidential candidate almost regularly at this point, like every month or so. This is ridiculous. And the people who are trying to throw him in jail so that even if he becomes president, he'll have a hard time doing so, or potentially he'll be kept from being president altogether. People who have had a vested interest in him being in jail and saying, forget about what the crime is. I am going to get Trump behind bars. Maybe those are the types of people who are threats to democracy more so than, someone who wants to lower taxes, enhance the economy and stem the flow of illegal immigration.
Fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported...
This is my second favorite question from the moderators, by the way. This was very, very pointed, very poignant, and very fair.
Criminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking.
That's fair, but I think that was multiple years into the presidency. And I think she had multiple times said even after 2020 that she opposed fracking. I could be wrong there, though.
My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the large... Then
why didn't she speak out when when Joe Biden refused to sign off on new leases until what was it, 2023, 2024? Why didn't she say anything then?
Just increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times.
I don't know if he was given $400 million. I think he was given $1 million or something.
Is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work...
I don't know if she's going to be able to do that. One of the problems with housing, and I reacted to a video about this. I could sort of explain this in better detail. But one of the problems with housing is not necessarily just the cost of houses, but also the supply. A lot of states have zoning laws that restrict what types of houses can be built where. A lot of states are essentially built now to only allow the building of condos and apartments and not new houses. That's one reason why the cost of housing is so high when you're talking about buying a home, is because there's just a relatively low supply. So you can't really, with a magic wand, say, "Booyah! All of the state zoning laws are overturned, and now you have to let developers build real houses for people." It doesn't really work like that. That's the type of promise that I don't think Kamala Harris can deliver on. It's not as outlandish as saying you're going to get rid of cancer, to be fair, but it's still kind of out there. Oh, I almost knocked over this glass.
That is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based...
I don't know what that has to do with housing, but okay.
...based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down.
But she didn't really address why she changed her policy and position on fracking, because even if her values haven't changed, her position has. So, I think that it would have been a really easy layup to be like, hey, look, I saw what decreasing oil production in the United States in the first half of Joe Biden's first term has done to our country. It increased gas prices, which increased the prices of other goods. And I saw how that was harming the American people. And I actually spoke to Joe Biden, and together we decided to sign off on new oil leases, to allow this liquid gold to flow in our nation once again. Like, this is actually one of the few things where Kamala Harris can actually point to her track record as being part of the Joe Biden presidency as a positive and as an example of her changing her mind in a way that's not her flipping on her beliefs and on her stances, on her principles. You can actually even say, like, hey, I still am an environmentalist in some ways. I do support renewable energy, and that's why, as part of the Joe Biden presidency, we have continued to support subsidies for things like electric vehicles, for things like solar power, and for things like wind power. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge the fact that for now, we do have to rely on oil to some degree. So while we still have to, let's continue to do this so that to use gas and oil so that our energy costs can continue to deflate, because they are deflating at the moment from what I can see. She could have given a great answer on this. It's a lost opportunity. It's very rare that she has something that she's strong on when it comes to policy, but I think she's relatively strong here, and she can make a good case that she's not going to betray her principles if she uses this specific example.
And name calling, the true measure of the.
But instead, she's talking about name calling. Name calling doesn't have anything to do with flip flopping on your positions or principles. Trump hasn't seemed to flip flop with any major principle except for abortion, in my opinion, at least from what I can tell. So this is just like a toothless argument that has nothing to do with the question.
Leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your response?
First of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars. Many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised.
You can't do all the things that, like, I love how there's like revisionist history now from the Blue Anon crowd to say that Donald Trump is like a terrible businessman when he has like ballooned his net worth. And, you know, does a failed businessman build like tons of skyscrapers all over the place that like rich people stay in all of the time and like run a broadcast television show that lasts for several seasons? Does that sound like a failure to you, my friend? No, that's not a failure at all.
So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police. She's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up.
And I like how he's pointing out more things that she's flip-flopped on. I kind of forgot about those. And I like how she's saying, not true, because now that the American people see that defund the police doesn't work, she now wants to say that she never supported it, which is fun.
Very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody.
Because you could actually connect like logical dots between like changing your policies on a certain thing. Like the American people, a lot of American people supported defund the police until they saw what happens when you defund the police, and then they changed their minds. Kamala Harris is free to do that. Politicians are free to change their minds, but you have to change your minds based on seeing like what the results of those policies are or studying the issues more, not by saying, you know what, I want to get elected, so I'm going to change my policy, which is literally what Donald Trump said about abortion. And what I suspect personally Kamala Harris is doing when it comes to oil and gas, although she's not really going to spell it out like Donald Trump will.
Laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute, I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, let's go.
She went out.
Because she kept on talking, although her mic is muted. She kept on trying to talk over Donald Trump.
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison.
That's true. This was something that CNN had exposed even just mere days ago. There was an investigation that turned out that she had told some people that she supported this policy back in 2019. Not that long ago. Now, did she flip-flop on that policy or not? No. And is ABC News going to fact-check Kamala Harris when she said, I never supported that? No, they will not.
A radical left
liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania.
Yep. She supported gun buybacks as well. There's another thing that Trump is right about, that she's shaking her head in because she wants to deny that it's a policy that she ever supported, because she realized that policy is way too radical for the majority of American voters.
If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of it. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get to.
environment that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
So if I want to understand his argument correctly, he's talking about the whole oil thing, where like they were trying to restrict the production of oil that skyrocketed the price of oil and gas, and then they allowed more oil to flow through the nation. The major catalyst of getting the gas prices to decrease, though, was not increasing production on oil and gas. Make no mistake, while the Joe Biden administration did eventually relent and sign new oil and gas leases, the new oil that was put into circulation all came from the oil reserves. And I hate that no one's talking about this. We basically drained our entire oil reserves, brought them down to historic levels in order to lower gas prices. And yet we are not increasing oil production in a way that will supplant that demand. I have heard neither Kamala Harris nor Joe Biden say anything about replenishing those depleted oil reserves. Those oil reserves are still dangerously low, and they're supposed to be used for emergency situations, not to lower gas prices because it makes you look bad politically. It's a gross misuse of our oil reserves. And on top of that, it's going to take a lot of time to replenish them back to the place that they were. Trump is wrong. It wasn't that they turned on the tap and let the oil flow from places where they had blocked it. It was that they drained our oil reserves. So Trump is wrong here, but also I completely disagree with how Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have handled the situation.
Yeah.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis.
I think they're going to spew the same conspiracy theory that Trump did not participate in the peaceful transfer of power, right? He was kicked from he was dragged out of the White House, kicking and screaming by multiple FBI and Secret Service agents.
Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully
True.
and patriotically. And
he also lied, I think, when he said that it had been hours until he posted the video. He tried to post the video and then was banned from Twitter, or like the video got taken down from Twitter because they didn't want Trump's message to tell the protesters to be peaceful to get out to the world. So there's that factor as well. I wish that Trump had mentioned that. I don't think he does mention this, but he mentioned it in the infamous moment during the CNN town hall with Caitlin Collins, if you want to go back and watch that.
Nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer.
Not true. I don't like the framing of that. I've done a whole video about this, showing off why and how this was so... Actually, I hate this rhetoric so much that I'm actually going to play the video for you guys, just because it's just so blatantly false and not true. I hate how this person's been venerated.
There were 2 people that died as a result from that, right?
No, only one.
Only one.
A protester.
Yeah, one. I know one person was shot dead, and I'm not 100% certain on what the circumstances were.
Basically, she was part of a crowd that was trying to break down barricades. You know, the other end there were police officers. They were kind of standing their ground, and as the protesters were trying to push down the barricade that they had set up and they were trying to defend, one of the officers shot him. There's rhetoric among the right that he was a thug or killed her in cold blood, what I find really weird because she was very much part of a crowd that was trying to like break down the barricade.
Right, it was obvious.
The protesters, by the way, excuse me, in that area, if you pull up the video, actually, I really do near-death experiences, but I'm going to go ahead and do this one. But actually, it's not near-death, it is death experience. But it's, what's the name of the person who died?
Ashley Babbitt.
I don't remember who it was that died.
Ashley Babbitt.
Yes, okay, so here's the part where I go over the video.
So here you have, these are the protesters right here, trying to break through the barricade. There are a bunch of them. Like, see, they're trying to break through this police line. These police officers are behind them trying to, like, protect, like, you know, members of Congress.
True. I know I'm getting used to myself here.
They're trying, and this is not peaceful. This is not peaceful.
Well, like, breaking down a window is not a peaceful thing.
Right. And so, if you keep going, like, yeah, so you've got the barricade here.
Yeah.
Police on the other side.
It looks like the police officers moved out of the way.
Yeah, they did. They got scared. I would be scared too. They say he's got a gun. Now they try to push through because they broke the glass.
Now, when they say he's got a gun, that means that that's literally a warning. So when they say he's got a gun, they should be like, hold on, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe we should stop and stand back, you know? But they don't. They decide to keep on being violent and pressing forward. These are, I would argue, and I would posit, deranged MAGA people.
Okay,
then the police officer fired. And there's actually Babbitt on the ground. Okay?
Oh, I see that they blurred the I'm glad that they blurred her out right there. Yeah, like, she was in a... Even if she wasn't...
Yeah, so, I mean, there's more aspects of the video. You can watch the whole video if you want to see my full analysis. But, like, the long and the short of it is, this is not someone who was murdered in cold blood by an out-of-control police officer. This police officer was very much in control. He probably should have fired at these people because they were pushing a barricade and probably would have stampeded these folks to death, maybe even beat them to death as well if they had their way.
Ed was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a
Completely
disgrace.
disagree.
But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into...
I do agree that the majority of January 6th prisoners are basically being treated like political prisoners. But to be fair, there are quite a few people who were there being explicitly violent as well. There was a whole cover story of the lady who was like, "Oh, but me, I'm a grandmother. Now look at me posing my dress in the barn with my ankle bracelet on. Look, they put an ankle bracelet on a poor grandmother." When like in reality, she was like found there with like a weapon, like breaking stuff or like fighting police officers. It's like she was not one of the peaceful protesters. There were peaceful protesters roped in there who got dragged or either got dragged in or duped into walking into the Capitol building. It's not exactly the same as the many people who were being violent and fighting with police who they should rightfully be convicted and put in jail or whatever.
People that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, "Oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet." That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
one
ask
of those, David, one of those people going to be prosecuted. One of the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted.
They're not going to be prosecuted because they're not white, dude.
Or in Seattle. They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
you. You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech.
Why are they asking him if he regrets what happened with January 6th? How is that going to affect Americans today? What does that have to do with modern American policy? Now maybe I'm rare. And most people voting care about vibes and not policy, but I care about policy. I'm like, when you're president, what are you going to do? Like, and it's not like Trump is going to do January 6th again. not like he did it the first time, but it's like, this has no bearing on how Trump will lead the country. We can go back in time all you want. I'm sure that you guys wish that there were MAGA people running around smashing things up in the Capitol building today. But I'm sorry, it's just not happening. It's probably not happening again. So sorry to disappoint. You're not going to be able to run your campaign on that. You're going to have to pick something else.
I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened.
At least Kamala didn't shake her head at that, because that's just blatantly true.
If Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs, I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured.
So Trump incited that, but all the people calling Trump Hitler aren't inciting his assassination attempts. Chuck Schumer didn't incite anything when he said that Kavanaugh would pay the price for voting against or overturning Roe v. Wade. Interesting. It's almost like you have a set of standard for one group of people, but not a set of standard for your own folks.
Some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
Except for neo-Nazis and white supremacists who should be condemned totally. But yeah, you're not going to see the fact checker say anything about that, are you? Bro, with this 3v1 debate, man, it's crazy.
Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath. If this and the
a bloodbath of jobs when it comes to the auto industry because a bunch of them will get lost. Yeah, and that also was fact checked. Not going to hear any. You're not going to hear any of the moderators fact check that either, are you?
Of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy.
Well, same term, but used differently, yes.
Because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be...
Illegal immigrants have killed more people than the protesters who rioted on January 6th. Just throwing that out there.
Very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills.
True.
They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he
Yo, this is one of the few zingers where like I feel like it's a great one because it's like the perfect Trump zinger is both funny but also substantive. It is substantive. It is a fact that Joe Biden has been clocking out a lot more than he should be, and a lot of that's probably due to his age. I mean, hey, I enjoy a chocolate chip on the beach as much as anybody else, but when you're president of the United States, there are more important things to do.
Signs a bill that the border is closed. All he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after...
Yeah, he's going to talk about Donald Trump lying, but not going to say anything about Kamala Harris, right?
You lost the 2020 election. You repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide.
Okay, not all that different than what Hillary Clinton did.
In the past couple of weeks leading...
Or Al Gore, I think, right?
Up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, we lost by a whisker.
I haven't seen this original quote. I don't know whether or not he said it sarcastically, but I was really surprised. I have a left-wing friend who DM'd me about this, and I was like, people are actually talking about this? This doesn't seem very important or interesting. But I guess the left-wing media has been focusing on this a lot. I frankly don't care what Trump thinks about the presidential election in the past. I think it's about as relevant as what Hillary Clinton thinks about her presidential election in the past. I don't care. I don't care. They can feel butthurt or they can be bereaved. I don't care. Hold whatever position you have. It's too late now. What are you gonna do? Buy a time machine and go back in time and take the presidency back? No. Okay. Too bad. Let's keep pressing forward and figure out how we're gonna fix the country moving forward.
That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it, and they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I
agree with that. I think that should have been done. That would have cleared up a lot of this mess because for all the whining the liberals did, at the end of the day, would that really have changed the election? See, Democrats don't like these questions being properly addressed for whatever reason, even though it would not have dramatically affected the result of the presidential election. There are things that we should be doing to shore up our elections that the Democrats just don't want to do. And you would think, logically, it would make sense to do so. Why not require voter ID when you're going to vote? Very simple things like that. It's just, it boggles my mind, some of the rhetoric on the left when it comes to elections.
75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they
said
we didn't have standing.
Some of those cases got rejected, but I think the majority of those cases said they didn't have standing. I personally disagree with that. I think those cases should have just been brought up and fully prosecuted, because then you can look. If even if the courts are crooked or whatever, like I don't like investigate them, look at all the evidence, and say, yeah, no, Joe Biden won this state or that county or whatever, and then call it a day. Settle it once and for all. But now we've got all of these cases that were kicked down to lower courts on standing instead of prosecuted completely inappropriately. To be fair, like there were some people who brought up cases like Mike Lindell, who they were extremely flimsy and weak. They promised all of this evidence that never showed up. So on that front, I do have some sympathy on the left wing there. But in general, like there were many cases that were batted down on standing when really they should have gone to trial.
That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing.
I don't think that he understands what standing is, though. Standing is more like you don't have enough evidence, or your case isn't fleshed out enough for us to proceed with the trial. There's not enough for us to go on here, so we can't take up this case. It doesn't mean we're not going to let you take this case to trial because you're Republican. Even if that was effectually what they did, that's not what the technicality means.
That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker, so he still believes he did.
He did say that he said that he lost it by a whisker, but he said he was joking.
Not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by...
This question seems a little bit dumb. The guy is saying if you break election laws and try to interfere with the election, we'll put you in jail. Is that a bad thing to say? Are we supporting election interference now if it's coming from the left? Like... This is just such a bizarro question. Like, I'm shocked there was not any discussion of this. That the moderator of the ABC News debate, David Muir, is basically saying it is completely irresponsible or wrong or despotic or whatever to call for the jailing of people who were interfering in American elections. Why? I don't know why you would defend that as a purported journalist.
By 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact.
So if we're going to talk about laughing, honestly, I could care less about laughter. Now, to my audience, I do like being able to make you guys laugh and chuckle on the other end of the screen there. But, you know, I don't really care as much about laughter when it comes to my president of the United States. I care about results. So if we want to talk about foreign affairs, okay, maybe people laughed at Joe Biden, but we didn't see China marching on Taiwan in the way that they're doing now. We didn't see Russia encroaching on the land of Ukraine in the way that they are, and even to the point of initiating a war against them. And we didn't see, we didn't see Hamas initiating a full-scale war against the state of Israel. So we can talk about laughter, sure, and Kamala Harris is a good person to do that. But at the end of the day, I care about the results. And hey, I would take laughter and world peace over no laughter and the entire world in disarray. Thank you very much.
That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just tell you about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her.
But I don't like how he dug into that, because that's a conspiracy theory. Like we don't know that for sure. I hate how he went into that.
He got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running.
From what I heard, she wasn't the first person to leave. She was at the bottom of the pack, or like at the upper or lower part of the pack. She did not last very long, but most presidential candidates don't. She did end up pretty far behind a lot of other candidates. She didn't really stand a chance.
I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think
up.
we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end.
True.
It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel.
Good.
But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
I don't know if there needs to be a two-state solution. That would be ideal, but maybe not necessary.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel.
I didn't know that.
If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one.
That's a pretty bold claim.
She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people.
I mean, see, again, I don't like the rhetoric that if you do what I don't like, then you must hate the Arabs or the Americans, whatever. But I think it is fair to point out that, like, the whole place is going to get carpet bombed. It's going to be covered in rubble. So, like, the way that things are happening, it's just in the trajectory of constant war. Because we've got Hezbollah involved in the whole situation and all that stuff. America, I think, would consider increasing our involvement in the war, considering how much Hezbollah gets involved. So, I don't like the posturing of Kamala hates Arabs, but he is right that her policy would be bad for Arabs who are still living in these Middle Eastern countries.
Israel will be gone. It would have never.
But also, to be fair, it's pretty hard to put this toothpaste back in the tube. Like, I mean, even Trump can only do so much to keep things contained when it comes to that Israel-Hamas war. I think the most that you would expect out of him is Hezbollah backing down, but he's not going to get Hamas to stand down in any way, shape, or form.
Happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion.
The only way to get Hamas to back down is for there to be no more Jews left to kill.
Because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around.
That's true.
Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so...
Yeah, like Kim Jong-un, like how he supported and endorsed Donald Trump for president. Not just kidding, he actually endorsed Kamala Harris. Look it up.
Clear. They can manipulate...
It was a joke, but still.
...you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand...
Yeah, flattery and favors. That's what got rid of all of those trade wars that Trump started.
And that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
All right. So I think that'll wrap it up for this portion of the reaction. I will be doing another stream where I react to the second half of the debate. It's just pretty long. I'm not going to be able to cover it in this entire stream. So, but for those of you who tuned in, thank you so much for popping in. I did see some of you guys come in and come out. It was nice to see you guys joining for the moments that you were able to join in. Also, I did see in the chat some messages from the Angry Canadian, so I did want to make sure I read those before I sign off for the evening. The Angry Canadian says it's my birthday today. Oh, nice. That's cool. That's what's up. Happy birthday, dude. Dude, how you gotta tell us how old you're turning. Either in the chat or in the Discord server. Angry Canadian said I wouldn't get involved in any war. I mean, true. I wouldn't want to get involved in any war either. I would go to war if it was necessary, but I wouldn't be happy about it. But also in general, I don't like war. I think war is necessary. That's why, like, when a war is initiated, I think it's fine to engage with it with both toes and both feet in the water rather than like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But I don't like starting wars. I think one of the worst things you can possibly do is start a war. I think the next worst thing you can do is let the other person run over you and just like neglect the well-being of your citizens, or allow the war to continue and last forever. Forever wars are awful and atrocious. It's almost worse than war in the first place. The Angry Canadian said, well, Trump intimidated the Taliban leader. That's true, from what I can gather. That is true. The Angry Canadian also said he could just find out where the leader's home is. I mean, yes, that's like part of the whole intimidation thing, if I remember correctly. He was like, yo, I know where you live and where your kids live, and showed him a picture of their house in an attempt to intimidate the leader of the Taliban when he was thinking about, I don't know, going back on some sort of like negotiation agreement when speaking with Donald Trump. So that's what I heard anyways. But anyways, for those of you who tuned in, I appreciate you popping in. You know who you are. I don't. Except for the Angry Canadian. I know who you are. You're cool. If you want to talk to me, the Angry Canadian, or even more people, join the Discord. All the Bread Boys are in there, and they also influence the things that I talk about during these streams. You can send things into the React Requests channel if you want me to talk about what you want me to discuss. But until, the next stream, that's pretty much all I got. So peace out, y'all. I will see you on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday at noon on the Newbie Highlights channel, where I upload videos 3 times a week, and on this Not a Newbie stream channel whenever I have the time to stream. But yeah, that's it. Peace out, y'all.